Insecurity has risen to a level where people question if there is still government in Nigeria. Joining us on the news to talk about this development is a legal practitioner, Raymond Nkanebe. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Felicity.
Do you think that maybe the PDP is overreacting?
Well, I don't think they are overreacting. I think they are only acting as the foremost opposition party and who are actually doing what they should do to keep the government in check. Now, when the president of a country all of a sudden jets out and then tells the nation that I'll be away for some 10 days and without disclosing where he would be, his itinerary, I think it's a cause for serious concern. And it is good to know that the PDP have actually taken up the gauntlet and asked the government for more clarification as to the whereabouts of the president. He's not traveling on his own, he's traveling on the Nigerian Air Force, taxpayers' money. I believe we deserve some explanation. The president of a country is a public asset. He is no longer an individual personality, as it were. To the extent that he occupies the foremost office of this country, he deserves to tell Nigerians where he's going to and why he is going to that place. So I don't think the PDP have actually done what is completely out of the ordinary. 10
days, is this such a long time? Is it that time frame? Does he require to go to the court within that time frame if he's traveling?
Go to court to get leave.
Go to the National Assembly to get approval, or let them know, inform them formally for a 10-day trip?
Well, I think if it were that he was going for, let's say, vacation, then he will officially transmit a letter to the National Assembly pursuant to Section 145 of the Constitution. And then by that letter, the Vice President would legally be the acting president of the country. But as it is now, some persons might argue that we don't have an acting president because the legal process that would have put the Vice President into acting capacity has not been complied with by the President.
Yeah, what could be the reason for this trip? If he's saying, is he entitled as a public officer and the _1 citizen of this country to take a private trip away from his position of authority without, or is there continuing discharge of his duty even while he is in the UK?
It would have been a different thing entirely if Mr. President had said he's going on vacation. You see, nobody will...
But then he might have been required to speak to hand over power.
If he was going for vacation, right?
Yes.
Of course he would have done that.
But now that he's going on a private trip,
that is what feeds all this suspicion. You say you are going to be away for 10 days. To do what? Are you going on a vacation? Are you going on a health trip? You understand? You have not disclosed why you are going. Because the law says if the president, for any reason, is leaving the country and he wants his vice president to act in his stead, he will write that letter that is mandated by the Constitution so that there will not be a vacuum in the seat of power. Now, the president had absconded without writing a letter to the National Assembly. So in the eye of the law, some people can argue that we don't have, that the seat of the presidency is vacant, as it were. What
could be the possible consequences should that become a thing?
Some persons might, it might be, I don't think it's completely an impeachable offense, but you know what constitutes gross misconduct that would warrant impeachment is always is not exhaustive. So it depends on persons who might go to court and make a case that, to the extent that Mr. President, who swore with the Constitution, who swore to uphold the provisions of the Constitution, having traveled without complying with Section 145 of the Constitution, that amounts to gross misconduct that should warrant him being impeached. But that would be left for the court to determine one way or the other whether the act of Mr. President constitutes an offense that warrants impeachment.
One last question before we go. Isn't it a bit, something of concern, so close to when he will be inaugurated after the election? Is there something not right about it?
I believe so, because this trip, because the schedule of a president is known ahead of time. So definitely this trip, as of last week, was unknown. Perhaps it was maybe 2-3 days ago that all the logistics of the trip were actually worked in. So that means there is something sinister. And when you look at the fact that they have not disclosed where he's going to,
Yeah, but the president was just here in Lagos 2 days ago, and the next thing he was in Maiduguri before he left. So he doesn't look. Some people will argue that he looks healthy, and he spoke to people.
Well, I'm not a medical doctor, and some people can look physically healthy, but deep down they are not completely healthy. I'm not wishing the president any ill will or ill health, but I'm saying that he ought to have done what he ought to do to dispel all these suspicions, permutations about his whereabouts. You get? If they had done what they should do, we wouldn't be here talking about this. So when you look at the spectre of, or the climate of insecurity raging all through the country, some might argue that this is a case of narrow fiddling, why Rome burns.
Thank you very much, Raymond Nkanibe, for coming on the news.
It's a pleasure having me.
We'll move on now.